this afternoon. So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Clermont County Chamber, I'd like to welcome you to one of our biggest Clermont to Columbus events this year. I think we had close to 90 registrations for this event. Really excited about it. Excited to be here this afternoon. Even more excited and honored truly to be joined by Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew McAfee. I'm the Director of Government Affairs here at the Clermont Chamber. We're so very grateful for our sustaining sponsors, our platinum sponsor, American Modern, gold sponsors, Likens Energy, the University of Cincinnati, Claremont College, silver sponsors, Duke Energy and Mercy Health, our bronze sponsors, Health Source of Ohio and Park National Bank, executive sponsors, Center Bank, Grant Career Center, Great Oaks, Shakely, Sporty's Pilot Shop, and Nestle Purina. And of course, very grateful for our series sponsors this afternoon, AT&T of Ohio. Also joining me this afternoon is Great Oaks President and CEO Harry Snyder, and the Dean of University of Cincinnati Claremont College and Chairman of the Clermont Chamber Board of Directors, Dr. Jeff Bauer. So at this time, I'm going to kick it over to Mr. Snyder so he can introduce our very special guest.
Thanks, Andrew. Governor, welcome.
Thank you, Harry.
Governor Mike DeWine's story is a true Ohio success story. He was raised in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Mike and Fran met at first grade and married while students at the University of Miami. Miami University, sorry. They have been blessed with 8 children and 26 grandchildren. Family is the core of everything Mike DeWine does, and that's why he's devoted his life to fight for Ohio's families. He knows when families are strong, Ohio communities are strong, and our future is bright. Mike DeWine loves Ohio and cares passionately about our state's future. He'll fight for an Ohio that works for everyone, every person, every family, in every corner of our state. Mike knows that to build our state into an economic powerhouse, we must have a great, strong schools, a great quality of life, and a compassion for those who need our help. Mike, we thank you for joining us today, and I know you know Clermont County well. You've visited our fairs, you've been to our businesses, you've been to our schools. So thanks for joining us today. Over to you,
well, Harry, thank you very much. Appreciate the very kind introduction. It's been always great to visit Great Oaks and see what you guys are doing. It's really what you're doing is so very, very important to the future of Ohio. And I'm sure we'll get into this in some of the questions, but what we do in education, making sure every young person and sometimes not so young person lives up to their God-given potential is really how we're going to determine the future of Ohio. It's the most important thing we can do. There's absolutely nothing more important. I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes and then just open it up because I think for questions and comments is a lot better, and we can be on your agenda in Clermont County rather than my agenda. But I'm very optimistic about the future of Clermont County. I'm very optimistic, frankly, about the future of Ohio. I think this is truly our time. It's a time when the Midwest is shining, and there's absolutely no reason we should not lead the Midwest. So very, very optimistic. We're seeing companies that are on the West Coast, the East Coast, they're looking to get into the heartland. We have so many good things going for us. Some we get just by our very nature. We have an abundance of water. If we take care of it and do what we need to do, it's a competitive advantage over many, many states. We're seeing what's going on out in the West, in the Colorado River, and other places. They just don't have enough water. Location, man, we got the location. We got, within a day's drive is 60% of the population of the whole country, 60% of the population of Canada. Work ethic, Ohioans just get up in the morning, we go to work. We're not a lot of drama. We just get the job done. And so, I'm very optimistic. What's the job of government? Well, I think the job of government is to keep taxes reasonable, predictable, low as we can keep them. The last budget we just passed, we cut taxes for business, we cut taxes for individuals. Again, as you know, we have no corporate income tax in Ohio. We are a very, very competitive state in regard to the tax rate. So we've got so many things going for us. I think the biggest question always is, is workforce. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing in Clermont County that we're seeing across Ohio, but it's also across the country. And that is, not enough workers or not enough workers with particular skills that the business needs. So as I look at the long-term goals of Ohio, I kind of go back to what I said to the General Assembly in my first and now only so far State of the State speech, and that was that I'm going to be asking you to invest in our people, invest in our particularly in our young people. This is how we move ahead as a state. And I can tell you just from in the 2 3/4 years, I guess I've been governor, and working very closely with local chambers, working very closely with communities, working very closely with Jobs Ohio, that when businesses are looking to expand, ones that are already in Ohio are looking to expand, or if they're looking to come into the state of Ohio, the one question that has to be answered, or they're not coming, or they're not expanding, is can they find the workers, and can they have the people that they need? We had one company in the northern part of the state a year or so ago that we're trying to keep in Ohio, very, very important. We kept them. Their big question was, how many PhDs can we produce in Ohio in chemistry every year? Now, it's kind of unusual, but every business has got its own needs. And for us to recognize that, and something, Harry, that you've been involved in, I know, is the business working with schools and vice versa, and knowing what jobs are out there. I think that's just vitally important. And part of what our goal has to be is to let kids know what all the options they have are. Many times kids don't know that there are many options out there for them. College is one, but there's many other options out there that do not involve college, and letting them know that, I think, is a key. So education is written very, very large, not just K through 12, but early childhood education all the way through to retraining workers. These are things that our administration is really focused on. I'll just conclude by saying that, I am optimistic. For 2 years in a row, we've won what's called the Governor's Cup. Site Selection Magazine puts it out. They award it to one state. We won it. And that means we're, creating more. We've seen businesses expand more in Ohio per capita than in any other state. So we're very, very proud of that. And we think we're well positioned as we move forward to the future. So let me just open up to our 90 or so friends out there in Clermont County. And again, thanks for hosting this.
Thank you, Governor. I'm going to kick us off here. Your remarks about employers needing talent really is something that obviously us here at the Chamber have heard time and time again. Right now, though, specifically in this kind of post-COVID, as we're kind of coming out of this pandemic, it seems like employers are having problem getting people to come back to work. We've had employers tell us time and time again, posting of jobs, they get applications, people are offered interviews and they just don't show up. So I guess my question is, how do we get people to go back to work?
Well, if I had that answer, I would certainly share it. I don't think I have any better answer than anybody else. Let me just make a couple comments. So one, we've gone through a once in 100-year pandemic that was disruptive, and it was disruptive in every single way. And so, people are looking at things differently. They're looking at their lives differently. They're looking at their families differently. And I'm not a sociologist. I can't study that. But it's clear that has been a big upheaval. And, so that's made a big difference. I read an article this morning. It was looking at national numbers, but it said we've never had as many people quit jobs as we have in the last few months. Now, they're moving jobs. They might be moving from one job to another, but just the number of people quitting. So it is, in fact, a seller's market if you are an employee. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I don't know what the new normal is going to be. I don't know where this thing settles out, but it's clear that people are thinking about life just differently, and they're making different calculations, and the pandemic and all the things that it caused. And so, look, we're have to business is adjusting, as business always does. It's a competitive market. Business is paying more, and businessmen and women are doing what they have to do. I think in the long run, though, our game plan has to remain the same. And our game plan in the long run is, how do we get every Ohioan, so that, particularly young people, that they find something they love to do, something they have a passion for. And then we give them, they have to work at it, but we make available to them the skill sets that they need to be able to pursue that passion. So it's easy to say, more complicated to do, but every single day focusing on how we grow the next generation so that they have the talent and the skill sets that they need. There's nothing sadder than seeing someone coming out of high school who doesn't really have the skills and is and just flounders, never, at least in the early years, doesn't find something they love, doesn't have the skill sets, not good. So, what Harry's doing, what all our educators are doing is important. Now, how do we do that? I think it has to be a holistic. So, we focus a lot. We put more focus than ever under our administration on early childhood education, early childhood development. That even means, finding pregnant mothers who are in very difficult situations and who don't have any prenatal care, because that child who is born a low birth weight is statistically going to have a more difficult time, and working with that mother so that that child gets a start moving forward. Something that's small, but I think it's significant, something Fran is working on, which is, if you know any kid 0 to 5 in Ohio now, with the Governor's Imagination Library, served by Dolly Parton in Tennessee, they get a free book a month that goes into that household. These are the things that we have to do, but it's not just, our young people. It's a 40-year-old. We came up with a program, and I know Lieutenant Governor has talked to many of you about, and that is called Tech Cred, which is simply that if a company wants to upscale the skill sets of their employees, and they can get an industry certificate, something that's recognized in the industry, we'll pay for it. Now, we're not going to pay for it until they do it, because we're paying for results. But if they do it, and that person gets the certificate, we pay for it. And these are things I think that we have to do. So I think we got a short-term problem that may morph into a long-term problem. I don't think we know, but we in Ohio, we are a fairly static population. That creates some real challenges, and we need to grow, and we need to find ways that we can grow. Now, we can't. The birth rate is whatever the birth rate is. No one's going to tell people how many kids they want to have, but it is a lowering birth rate in Ohio, just like it is across the country. So we've got to maximize the people we have so that they can be as productive as they can. We also have to do everything we can to draw people to Ohio, people who are smart, people who are innovative, and we are starting to do that. One of the areas where we can do it is with our colleges and our universities. One of the first numbers I asked after I became governor, I said, are we a net importer of students or exporter? And the answer is, we're a pretty big importer. We got more kids coming to Ohio in school. And the statistics are that if you're likely to, your first job is likely to be, if you're in college, you graduate from college, your first job is likely to be within either 60 miles of your home, your original home, or 60 miles of where you went to school. And so we just have an opportunity to pick up more of these kids. Working with Jobs Ohio, we have a competitive advantage. So these are all things that we are focused on every single day, because these things will ultimately matter. I can't wave a wand and help a bar and grill, in Batavia. I can't do that. But what I can do is set Ohio on the right course and work with the legislature to do that. And I think we are on the right course. I know we are.
Excellent. Dean Bauer.
Governor DeWine, thank you for joining us today. Certainly, we'd like to think that Clermont County is an excellent place to live, work, and play, and one of the best of the 88 counties that you represent. Infrastructure is certainly a big topic of conversation. My question is, what are the infrastructure priorities for Ohio that you have?
Well, we started off, as you recall, by doing something that was controversial right after I was elected. But the first thing I got was a briefing from the Ohio Department of Transportation, and it was disaster as where we were going. We were going downhill. We didn't have enough money to even keep up our roads, let alone build any new ones or do anything that we all want to do. So look, we were able to convince the legislature to raise the gas tax. That has made a difference, and thank heavens, we went into this pandemic with that, because as you know, we had a number of months where the mileage and miles driven was significantly down. Second, we have invested, and I look at this as infrastructure. We invested in water. H2 Ohio, it's a program that you don't hear much about in Clermont County. It's Lake Erie focused, but it's important to have water in Ohio. So we've made that investment. The federal dollars that have come into Ohio, we did something with our budget that I'm proud of. When the pandemic started, we cut spending. We froze hiring. We ended up, frankly, with a surplus. And some of this was one-time money because, as we looked at it, was probably not going to be renewable money. Certainly the federal dollars are one-time money. So what we have done, working with the General Assembly, because they need to approve, anything that we propose, and we work with them on these things. Significant amount of money is now available in regard to water and sewer projects. So, some of your communities may have applied for those. $250 million to start off with that we have set aside. That is clearly infrastructure. And some small communities that never will have enough money to do what needs to be done, we'll be able to help them do that. Broadband, big investment. We started off again with $250 million there, $250 million in broadband, and we hope to have more. Our goal is to have broadband everywhere in the state of Ohio, because part of the new world, as you know, is that there are people whose occupations, whose businesses allow them to live anywhere. And, we've got some spots in even Clermont County where you may not have the right broadband, but they're great places to live, and people would love to live there if they've got that broadband and can do business there and can and do that. So another area where we're investing in really infrastructure is in the whole brownfields area. $300 million we've set aside to make available for brownfields remediation. And what we know is, from experience, is when companies are looking to expand in Ohio companies looking to expand in Ohio, or when we have companies that are out of state, they don't want to wait to clean it up. They want to come in and go. They don't want a 2-year wait as it's being cleaned up. So strategically making decisions, as communities strategically make decisions about what order to clean up their brownfields, is also economic development. So these are I think those are all infrastructure investments. We've got more, but those are certainly some of them.
Governor, next question. The supply chain's crumbling and manufacturers cannot get materials, or builders. We're seeing that at our Live Oaks campus that we're renovating. Some of my friend at West Clermont School has an elevator that she can't get a part for. What's the state doing to help fix these supply lines and support manufacturers and industry?
Yeah, Harry, during the pandemic early on, we ran into the brick wall of the supply problem. The first thing came with these N95 masks, and hospitals couldn't get them. Yet you had people working in hospitals wearing them for day after day after day. The whole supply chain just went south. And I think that, out of and this is just one example of how things are changing and have been changed and will continue to change because of the pandemic. I think there are a lot of companies who got hit pretty hard and industries that got hit pretty hard and are still getting hit. And I think there's a lot more sentiment for let's produce it here. Let's produce it in Ohio. Let's produce it in the United States. Companies saying, look, we need suppliers and we need our key suppliers closer to us. I mean, we're talking right now to some companies, can't disclose the name, but who want to come to Ohio, and their whole business model is going to be bringing their suppliers and having their suppliers within a relatively close distance to that main company. So I think a lot of this is happening for the long run because of what the pandemic brought home. I mean, we did something during the pandemic. We worked very closely with the Ohio Manufacturers Association. We were able, working with them and getting some money from Jobs Ohio, to convert some businesses over. We had some businesses that literally converted over almost overnight to start making some essential supplies and things we need to battle the COVID. Sometimes it was hand sanitizer, sometimes it was gowns, sometimes it was other things. So I think, looking at this from the long run, there's a natural inclination now and a movement towards making more things in Ohio, in the United States. And I think we have to take advantage of that as a state. And again, we can do that with Jobs Ohio and being a lot nimble and a lot quicker. None of that, Harry, or anyone who's watching, solves your immediate problem. You can't get your friend can't get the elevator fixed, or you can't do that. But I think we're getting a valuable lesson. We depend much too much on China. The numbers of what we buy from China is staggering. And we saw during the pandemic what they can do. We were trying to buy these N95 masks and other things that were absolutely essential. And you'd get a deal cut, and then it would get turned off over in China. Communist Party make a decision, no, I'm not going to the United States, it's going someplace else. We can't live with that. And so we've got to do a much better job and making these things ourselves.
Thank you, Governor. So, obviously, big topic. Lots of discussion today about vaccine mandates, both at the state level, the federal level. How do you think we should balance the rights of businesses to kind of operate the way they seem fit and individuals to make their own decisions?
Look, I think government ought to stay out of business. I think government should not be telling businesses to require vaccines, and I don't think government should be telling them they can't require vaccines. I mean, just take a hospital, for example. Is it really the government's business? And there's bills in the legislature today where they want to basically say that your local hospital or any hospital in the state, now you no longer can require that your employees be vaccinated. I think we ought to let that up to the hospitals. They're the ones who are responsible for the safety of their patients. They're the ones who are responsible for the safety of their employees. They're the ones that ought to be able to make those decisions. And, some of it's a business decision. They make a decision, they can't do it because they'll lose too many employees. That's not our job, I think, in government. So, in saying that, I guess I'm, against what the president has said he's doing, and I am also against what some legislators in Ohio are doing. But I think it's consistent. I think we should trust business, and it'll get worked out.
Thank you, Governor. Dean?
So I'm not going to apologize for the football game earlier in the year, since you are a Miami University grad, but part of my training is in economics. And so I believe the pandemic has really induced what we would describe as structural unemployment, which really requires some job retraining. So the question that I have is there things that we could expect in future state budgets that would help Ohio be better prepared to attract those 21st century manufacturing jobs?
Well, I think it goes back to the things that I've said. We've got to do all the things. We've got to have the right business climate. That means don't mess up. Government not mess up. Don't raise taxes. Take taxes down when you can, which we did in this last budget. Be predictable, have Jobs Ohio, which gives us a competitive advantage because even though I work with them every day, John Houston works with them every day, they are a private entity and they're private nonprofit, and it gives them more flexibility and more ability to move. And frankly, they have more money than they would have had. So, that's a competitive advantage. I think that, we need to continue to say that we are a state that is a manufacturing state. We take great pride in being a manufacturing state. We have always been a manufacturing state. But part of that today is getting young people exposed to manufacturing. Letting them know what actually manufacturing is. In manufacturing today is very, very different than it was 20 years ago or 40 years ago. It's many times very, very clean. It's very high tech. It can be extremely exciting and challenging for a young person who wants to go in there and learn what it takes to produce. Manufacturing today, to be competitive, has a lot of automation, and it has a lot of technology. And the technology many times is what makes it competitive. And that, to me, is one of the things we need to sell our young people on, or at least not sell them, but expose them to what that is. And so that's something that businesses are doing now. They're looking at it as we need to grow our own. We are working with them in that. And, when you talk to young people when every opportunity I get, I try to encourage, whether it is the local career center or whether it's the community college or whether it's the four-year college, encourage them, are you working with your local businesses? Because I've just seen it through my own kids, and I've seen it through my own grandkids. Our oldest grandson is 28, so we have now grandkids, and what I'm seeing is if they get excited about something, whether it's in high school or whether it's in college, and then they start working in that field, then everything comes together for them, and that's really, I think, what our focus needs to be. So I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. Education is our business. I mean, education is just important, and you got to look at it from a very, very broad point of view, basically pre-birth all the way until a worker. I was in a company 2 weeks ago, and they were talking about they took advantage of our tech cred program. And I said, well, what were the ages of the workers? And that got these industry certificates and moved up and got better pay. And one of them was 60. So this is a continuing process, and it really, really never ends. And it's the right thing to do for the person. It's also the right thing to do for the state.
Governor, a lot of the people on the line are concerned about what happened with our unemployment department and how we handled that, and how potential funds were lost and the recovery of those funds. And so what's your administration doing to correct those errors and reboot the unemployment office?
Well, one thing we did, Harry, is bring in the private sector. We went to the business roundtable, we went to other businesses and said, can you loan us some people to come in and help deal with this crisis? Part of it was, and I don't blame the federal government, but the federal government, with their plan, had different regulations, a lot more lenient as far as getting the money out. So a great amount of this money are federal dollars that were put out under the federal government's guidelines of getting. The whole goal was to get that money out as quickly as possible. Government, unfortunately, many times is way behind in technology, and we had already started a process to bring state government into the 21st century, but the pandemic hit before it had really had a chance to get where it needed to go. But the answer is, we've brought in the private sector because this is a national problem and it involves national and international fraud. We also brought in and hired on a consulting basis a former U.S. attorney because he has contacts into the Justice Department. And I said, look, we're going after these people. We need to do everything that we can to work with the Justice Department to go after people who committed this fraud. But it's a national problem, not unique to Ohio. But frankly, business has come in and helped us out and made a huge difference.
Thank you, Governor. We're 20 months now into this global pandemic. What would you say personally has been your biggest success and your biggest setback or regret?
Oh, I'm not going to do regrets, nor will I do successes. People get a chance to vote on me next year, and I'll save that for the book, if there ever is a book. But look, I think I'm not trying to be evasive, but here's kind of where we are. Every day we continue to try to get Ohio through this. And from 19 months ago, however many months ago it was, every day we tried to base our decisions on the best available information we had at that time. You can see how the science has changed, the understanding of this. Just to give you an example, remember early on, the great emphasis was on wipe everything off, get the sanitizer, wipe everything off. Well, that's probably still good practice. No one's saying that's not, but after a while, the scientists started saying, well, look, this is really an airborne disease and we've got an airborne problem. And, you need to look at it from that perspective. So I'm more focused on how do we get out of this thing. I'll do the retrospective later, but look, our ticket out of this is pretty simple. Our ticket out of this is more people vaccinated. Now we're slowly edging up, but we're only picking up 4,000 or 5,000 new people every single day. These are people who've never been vaccinated before. We're at about 64%, I think, of those 12 and above, those who can be vaccinated. So we're going to make the next move when the federal government gives us the green flag, which we think is going to be somewhere around November 3rd or 4th in that area if everything goes as planned, so that parents will be able to have their children, down to age 5 vaccinated. The risk to a child is not very great, particularly the younger children. But the truth is that child, particularly teenagers, socialize a lot and they move around a lot, and they can carry that and spread it. So what you really worry about is, there's some teenagers that have gotten sick, and we have some in hospitals right now in Ohio. But if that doesn't bother parents, I think worrying about who that teenager is going to come in contact, whether it's a grandmother or an aunt or an uncle or a neighbor or somebody who's not vaccinated, is a real concern. While our numbers statewide are not horrible, as I said, about 64%, to state the obvious, that still means there's a third of us who are not vaccinated. The statistics, the most telling statistic is this, that tells the whole story, and that is from January 1st of this year till now, 97% of the people who have been in Ohio hospitals because of COVID were not vaccinated. So that's who's dying. That's who's going into hospitals. And we're seeing more and more 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds, who are getting very, very sick. So that's our ticket out of this. And I'm trying to get us, navigate and do everything I can to get more people vaccinated. Yes, it's an individual choice. I fully understand that. But this is an area where what you do impacts other people. I mean, this is not a case where someone makes a decision, I'm just don't care, and it's going to impact me. What happens to you impacts other people, and that's why it's a little different than sometimes people look at this as a question of freedom. I get it, I understand that, but it also does impact other people. It's not just you. So we're moving forward, but we still have this. I'm watching this go down. The virus rate is going down every day. That's going down pretty good chunk every day. But we're still at, statewide 5 times what is considered to be high incidence level. So if you're vaccinated, you're pretty good shape. If you're not vaccinated, you're not in a very good shape, and you're very likely to continue to get this. At the rate we're going, I don't want to put any dates on it, but we should be down to a reasonable number by somewhere in December, and maybe sooner. But we're not there yet, and that's the only caution I would have. We're not there yet. When we get there, we'll all see it in the numbers, and you'll see the number of cases go down. You'll see the number of people going into hospitals going dramatically down. So we're heading the right direction. We have no idea what winter is going to bring. And I've read all the things I can read, and I have nobody has. They speculate, but no scientist really know.
Thank you.
Governor, we had a question come in from Commissioner David Painter from Clermont County regarding electric vehicles and the plans that the state might have to make sure we have adequate charging systems that are strategically located within the existing transportation system.
Well, we certainly are looking at that, and we're certainly working on that. We're going to have some. We're going to pay for. There are actually some federal programs to do that. We're going to look at that and see if it's enough. Also, here again, this is an area where at some point, the private sector is going to kick in. It's going to become enough. There's going to be enough, it's chicken and egg, which comes first, but it's going to become enough electric cars out there that the private sector is going to say, yeah, that's how we kick in. Now, at the small percentage we have today, you're not seeing a huge uptick in regard to the private sector. I mean, I talked the other day to a man who has a big company nationwide, and who has a lot of gas stations and convenience stores, and he and I just were talking about the cost for them to install one of these, and then how long it would take to get that money back. So we're not there yet, but we want to be positioned. Our goal is to be a very friendly state. The people who have electric vehicles, we want to be very friendly. Ohio's history, I don't have to remind anybody that Ohio's history is building cars, and we're a great car parts company state. But as that changes and we go from the combustion engine, as we go from the engine over to the batteries, we have to move with it. And that also goes to the kind of companies that we're trying to attract for Ohio.
Governor, thank you for your support of the Ohio School Fair School Funding program that made it through this recent biennium budget. I guess as an educator, the concern with the ed choice bills that are in the House and the Senate right now being increased, and keeping charter schools and community schools at the same requirements as our public education. Seems to be an attack sometimes on our public educational systems. Any thoughts on that or reflections?
Yeah, Harry, look, this is, we're in an interesting state in regard to this issue. You go into many urban areas, many cities, and there's a deep concern that very responsible people have about whether those public schools are doing as well as they should be doing for that student, very expressed. We've seen some high-performing charter schools do exceedingly well. We've seen other charter schools, obviously, who didn't do well at all, and probably never should even started. But the high-performing charter schools, I think, do a very good job. When you go out into the rural areas, and right now I'm in Cedarville. we have a lot of homeschool kids here. I think it's, in this small school district, last I looked, we had 40 some. And it's a school district that only has 650. So, people are making those choices to do homeschooling. But if you go to most of our rural schools, and not just our rural schools, but certainly many of our other schools, that public school is literally the center of the community. It is where people gather Friday night for football. It's where they gather for all kinds of different functions and the winter basketball games. And it is the thing that pulls everybody together. And so, people in that area of the state would hardly, for some of them, even understand school choice. They wouldn't think about school choice. I'm going to send my kid to this school and I'm happy with my school. So we are a state, because of our great diversity, and urban areas, rural areas, suburbs, we got people all over the place on this. And I think, the challenge is, how do we, keep enough choice in there so that a kid who is in just a non-performing or horribly underperforming school, that there is an option there and there's competition. On the other hand, we have to run our public schools. Fran and I are products of public schools. K through 12, we were in Yellow Springs public school system. We then went to Miami University. So, we're products of that. So we're big fans of public schools, but we also, I think what we have to do in any discussion is to look at it from the child's point of view and try to drown everything else out and just look at what's in the best interest of that child and what is in the best interest of that family. So I haven't answered your question. I've kind of gone around it a little bit, but you've got a legislature. I don't ever speak for the legislature, but the legislature represents, and I represent, a state that has many ideas in regard to this. And I would maintain that in different parts of the state, the demand for more school choice is very, very strong. In other parts of the state, it's not very strong. It's not really very strong at all. And they could both be right. It's a diverse state. So we got to keep a sweet spot there if we can find a sweet spot, and that's what we want to try to do. But you're right. These are big issues.
Thank you, Governor. I think we might have time for one more question. Can you tell our audience just a little bit about your recent trip to the southern border? What'd you see? What'd you learn?
Yeah, Fran and I went down for 2 days, quick trip, but we flew down, saw a lot. Number one, we have 113 members of the Ohio National Guard who have been along the Texas border for 1 year. They're getting ready to come home. I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with them, just talking to them, what they were doing. Just absolutely phenomenal young people, most of them very young, in their early 20s. You all get a kick out of this. They work their shift every day. They work their job, but many of them took this opportunity. They were down there, away from family, away from friends. They took that opportunity to do an awful lot of online schooling and pick up a lot of credits and do a lot of things and move, because a lot of them were students when the decision was made for them to go down. What they're really doing down there is spotting the Border Patrol. In other words, giving the Border Patrol, they don't allow me to tell exactly what they're doing, but they're basically involved in kind of being the eyes and ears of the Border Patrol. Our National Guard, because of the way they were sent down there under the title, they can't make arrests. They're not doing that, but they're freeing up Border Patrol people to do that. So that's one observation. Number two, look, there's a mess down there. It's a humanitarian crisis. It is a crisis that directly impacts Ohio. Some people say, well, what's that have to do with Ohio? Look, last year, we had a record high number of overdose deaths from drugs. 80% of those deaths came about because of fentanyl. Fentanyl is getting into the United States through that border. It is coming across. It starts usually in China. We're not doing enough to really put the pressure on China. They could shut this down, or at least dramatically shut it down. They're not doing it. It's flowing out of there into the Mexican drug cartels in Mexico. And the Mexican drug cartels get across the border. They take it up. They take it into Ohio and other states and make a ton of money. They figured out this is the best way to make the money is on fentanyl because it is so potent, so unbelievably potent. What's happened along the border is, and this is not from Ohio guardsmen, but this is from Border Patrol, that some of them have been down there doing this job 20, 25, 30 years. They said, as soon as the Biden administration took office, they started seeing a dramatic uptick, a number of people. And it's the signal. People interpret the signal as, look, it's going to be a lot easier to get across. So we have a lot more people coming across, just in raw numbers, is dramatically increased. The Biden administration made the decision to stop building a wall. What the Border Patrol will tell you is that the wall serves a function in that it funnels it and number of people, and it makes it easier for them to control what is going on. The Trump wall was dramatically different than the previous wall. We saw both of them where we were. The Trump wall, I don't know how anybody gets across it, over it. It's massive. And then at the top, I don't know for how many feet, but there's no way to, it's totally slick. There's nothing you can put your hand on. You could not get over. So walls do have some purpose. We stopped building walls. We're also, Border Patrol told us that when they apprehend someone, in 70%, roughly 70% of those individuals are at some point in the near future turned loose, told to come back to court and given a court date on a certain date, but then it's way in the distance and there's no one supervising. So most of them never show up for that court date. So, I think with the president, bluntly, I think the president needs to go down there. If I was the president, I would go down there. I think part of being a governor, part of being a president is go where the crisis is, talk to the people who are having to deal with it and see what you can do to help. And so I would suggest the president go to the border. I think that he needs to look at the policies and, if it's not working, which it's not, maybe I'll be changing the policy.
Excellent. Thank you. And with that, we are unfortunately out of time. Once again, I want to thank our sustaining sponsors and, of course, our series sponsors, AT&T Ohio. Thank you, Harry and Dean Bauer, for co-hosting with me this afternoon. And I especially want to thank you, Governor. It's truly an honor to speak with you today. On behalf of everyone here at the Chamber and on behalf of all of our members, thank you. Your service and commitment to our state and community is inspiring, and we hope that you will continue making Ohio the preferred place to locate, operate, and grow a successful business. With that, I'll give you the final word.
No, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it very, very much. Again, optimistic about Clermont County, optimistic about the state. We're moving forward. We've got a great future ahead of us. And I think we know what we need to do. We just have to go do it every day. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Governor.